Okay, so if you're in the SEO world at all, you know the end of 2025 was, well, it was chaos, right? Rankings just seemed to evaporate overnight, and it left a ton of people scrambling for answers. But what if this wasn't just another small update? What if it was Google completely changing the rules of the game? Well, in this explainer, we're going to cut through the noise, make sense of Google's new playbook, and give you a clear strategy to win in 2026. Let's dive in.
Here's our game plan. First, we'll get a handle on that seismic shift that just happened. Then, we're going to decode the new rulebook. It's called EEAT. After that, we'll look at the actual data, who won, who lost, and why. Then, the important part, your practical action plan. And finally, we'll look to the future and figure out what this all means. All right, so let's set the scene. Picture this. It's mid-December, everyone's winding down for the holidays, and then bam, Google drops this monster core algorithm update that just sends these massive shockwaves through the entire industry. And for a lot of people, that's exactly what it felt like. One day you have solid, predictable traffic, you know what to expect, and the next morning, it's just gone. This wasn't some minor tweak. This was Google fundamentally rethinking what quality content even is. And look, this wasn't just a gut feeling. The data is crystal clear. An analysis of over 800 websites showed just how big this was. A jaw-dropping 59%. Nearly 6 out of every 10 sites saw a significant negative hit. Just think about that. For every one site that got a boost, nearly 3 got penalized. This was a complete reordering of the search landscape. So what was the big idea behind all this chaos? Well, we've basically shifted from an era of relevance to an era of satisfaction. For years, SEO was all about keywords, right? Does the page have the right words? But now, with AI that can pump out keyword-stuffed articles all day long, that's just not a good enough signal anymore. Google's new, much harder question is, did this page actually help the user? Did they have a genuinely good human experience? That one shift in thinking explains everything. Which, of course, brings us to the solution. If user satisfaction is the new goal, how in the world does Google measure something so subjective? Well, they use a framework. And this framework is now the absolute law of the land for ranking. Let's break it down. EE8. You've got to burn this acronym into your brain. It stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. This is not just some vague guideline, folks. This is the actual lens Google is using to judge the quality and credibility of pretty much everything on the web. Now, all 4 of those letters are super important, but the newest one, that first E for experience, this is the real game changer. It's the most revolutionary part of this whole thing. Google doesn't just want content from people who did some research on a topic. It wants content from people who have actually done the thing. They've lived it. And this example right here makes it all make sense. Look at the left. The iPhone 16 Pro has a great camera. Okay, an AI could write that in its sleep by just scraping a spec sheet. It's true, but it's totally generic. But the right side? After 2 weeks of testing, we measured 34% better performance. Here are our original photos. See? That's something only a real person who actually held the phone can create. It has details, real data, proof. This is the difference between summarizing information and creating new knowledge. And that is exactly what Google wants to reward. So theory is one thing. What did this actually look like in the real world? Let's dig into the data and see who really thrived under these new rules and who got absolutely crushed. The patterns here are impossible to ignore. Just look at these profiles of the sites that lost. Content with no clear author, down 52%. Websites that were full of old, outdated information, down 43%. But look at that last one. Thin affiliate reviews. The sites that recommend stuff without ever touching the products. A soul-crushing 79% drop in traffic. Just gone. And to put an even finer point on it, let's look at one specific type of content, those best vacuum cleaner listicles that used to be everywhere. If they couldn't prove hands-on testing, they lost an average of 71% of their traffic. That entire content model, a staple of the internet for a decade, is now fundamentally broken. But here's the good news. It wasn't all doom and gloom. On the flip side, the reward for getting this right is huge. The sites that really leaned into EAT, the ones that showed off their expertise and published original research, they saw an average traffic gain of 47%. The gap between the winners and losers has never been this wide. Okay, so maybe you're looking at those loser stats and yeah, it feels a little too familiar. Don't panic. How do you get from that side of the chart to the winner's circle? This right here is your practical blueprint. This is how we fight back. Now look, this isn't a quick fix. There's no magic button you can press. It's a process. It starts with some foundational fixes you can do in the first month. Then you move into enhancing your most important content. And finally, you have to embrace building your authority as something you are always doing. It's an ongoing effort.
And here is your checklist. You can start on this stuff today. Put real author bios on your articles with their actual credentials. Go into your content and add phrases like, in my experience, or when I tested this. Ditch the stock photos and use your own original pictures and videos. And if you really want to stand out, publish your own case study or a survey. Every single thing on this list is a powerful signal of EEAT to both your users and to Google. All right, so we've gone through the what, the why, and the how. Now, let's just zoom out a bit. What does all this mean for the bigger picture? Where's this all going as we get deeper into 2026? I absolutely love this quote from a marketing expert because it's so brutally honest. The speed of change right now, mostly because of AI, is just staggering. It's so fast that the biggest trend we'll be talking about next year probably hasn't even been invented yet. And what that means is that clinging to short-term tactics is a losing game. Focusing on fundamentals, like EEAT, is the only way to build something that lasts. And that really brings us to the core idea, the big question you should be asking yourself. As the internet gets absolutely flooded with cheap, easy, generic AI content, Google is making a massive bet. They're betting that the content will actually find valuable. The stuff that's truly satisfying and trustworthy isn't going to be made by machines. It's going to be made by real people sharing their real lived experiences. And that, right there, might just be the most important rule of all.